Hello, folks. It's GB Pirate here again today, and we're back on Ansaldo Genova. So, I've gone back and forth with this map maker once now, and we've got some pretty big changes. The map still isn't 100% done in the art, but that's that'll come, right? We're making some good progress. Um, One thing I want to point out really quick is this texture here just looks a little too dark. Um, I think it needs to be lightened up a little bit. It just seems too dark, especially even though these stones here are man-made. Just color-wise, it should be a bit lighter. I think. Yeah, it's just too dark, and it almost looks. I mean, I don't know. It's just too dark. Um, of course, we've got a new atmosphere, so it's a nighttime atmosphere, or maybe dusk, which is great. Um, Night maps are always cool. Plus, we got the cool lighting effects, and when we have the new visual updates going on, we're gonna see all the cool muzzle flashes and things like that. So it'll really lighten things up. We've got the tanks that were here all lined up. Those are gone now. That's great. Another thing, I know we had talked about this warehouse in the map review, and I'll kind of demonstrate this when we boot up the game. But this warehouse is still indestructible, but the mapper added sight and shot blockers to either side. So even when this is destroyed, it'll still act as a sight blocker, so you can't kind of put squads in here and fire into the enemy base and pin them down. And because of the asymmetric nature of the map, you can see the bases aren't, and when we boot this up, you'll see the bases aren't in the same spot. This is really important for making the pathfinding distances equal between different points. And there's also been a change to the territory sectors, which I'll get to. But yeah, again, I'm still a little weary of kind of the lack of shot blockers around the base. Of course, this is a big shot blocker. I think this big factory can't be destroyed. Um, and then this is kind of in the way, but you have enough space here where even though it's a bit of a big base sector, I don't think it's that big of an issue. The only thing is that this bunker here, well, it won't show us the UI, right? But enemy squads can still come in and flank this way and get behind the bunker. So if we look at okay, you can at least come this way and use this as kind of a sight blocker and come over here. So that'll definitely be an issue to test, and maybe it's interesting. Maybe it'll be a fun kind of opportunity for kind of base rating and things like that, because the bases are relatively close, especially when you consider that a lot of the fighting might be down here, where there's this VP down here. We got some changes to the middle. The VPs moved a little bit. This just all of a sudden got really dark. Huh. I think it's definitely needs to be a bit lighter because the fog really just lightens it up. Um, we got some changes to the water. Again, maybe it's just in the editor, but it seems a little too dark to see too much. That might be something to consider to brighten up the map, but we'll take a look at it in game. And then on this base sector here, we've got these hedges. I think these are permanent. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at, say, vehicle heavy. Okay, so I don't actually think... Yeah, these actually won't be permanent. So we're going to find... what is this? Oak hedges invincible. Maybe they are actually invincible. We'll see. Interesting. Yeah, we're in vehicle heavy. Okay. Yeah, we got a similar situation here with these sight and shot blockers. So I looked at this briefly, and this building cannot be permanently destroyed. So I used the B-25 bombing run, and I did one, maybe two on this building, and its foundation stayed like a Co-1 or Co-2 building. So having these floating blockers here won't be an issue because the whole building itself will stay a blocker. This just prevents, as well as these boards and blockers here, this prevents these houses from being garrisoned and shot through. And I don't know if it's a bug with the asset or just the fact that they're kind of inside the building. The only thing is that when you hop in, you can see through. So the visual part of the blocker doesn't actually function. And I'm pretty sure that's been a bug since the game was launched. But I'm hoping, I thought it was going to be fixed. So one thing to note with these buildings here and the ones over here on the other side's base is that these blockers do actually work. So, well, they sort of work. You can garrison these buildings, but you can't shoot out of them, but they do provide sight. So I'm not sure if it's an issue with the placement of the blockers themselves, like partially inside the building, or if it's just the blockers themselves are bugged. I know they've been bugged for a while. I'm not sure if they've been fixed or not. But yeah, I did an experiment here where I used like the American Airborne Company bombing run, destroyed this warehouse, and it stayed as a permanent blocker. So the floating blockers here aren't an issue in terms of having like, oh, you can destroy this building with enough ordnance and all of a sudden there's like a floating wall that you can't see or shoot through, but you can move through. No, this stayed with as a permanent blocker, even when it was destroyed. The only issue I said before, you can garrison these and see through them, but you can't shoot through. So theoretically, it should be easy for a player to, if you have a flamethrower or something, you can attack ground through here with impunity. Biggest issue would be that you can put a unit in here, spot the enemy base, and pull out an AT gun and fire into the enemy base with like the really high accuracy of when you have vision on a target. But that's something that we can work out in playtesting. So anyway, without further ado, let's hop in the game and check this out. Alright folks, so some things to note. It looks like the buildings have been moved or capture points moved, so you can't hop in buildings and capture the points at the same time. These have been spaced out too. These were really close together, so before, I think they were right next to each other where you could capture both at the same time, which has been great that that's been changed. Okay, let's actually look at the TAC map real quick. So we've got some changes. So
stroke of luck, boys. They're pulling us back.
It looks like we've got 10, 20, 25, 30, 35, 45 fuel. So I think it's the same where it's like 5 less, but we don't have that plus 16 fuel anymore. So we've got 32 munitions, 42, 52, 62, 72, 82 munitions. Okay, so perfect fuel munitions. Maybe, 40 is kind of the standard fuel on 1v1 maps, but a little bit higher might not be an issue. We got some changes here where you don't have, this is no longer cutting off this fuel from the base. So now you can just go cap the fuel, get that +5 right away. And yeah, I see that with the kind of the rough center line being here, you've got some, I think that this hop is still biased towards this player one here slightly, but you've got a bit more powerful cutoff. So let's say you're playing the middle, and if you're controlling the middle, it's hard for the other opponent to hold the south, but you can even kind of push up here and take the cutoff if they're in the north. You've also got these strong cutoffs in the south. So we talked about this before, I'm pretty sure, but we've got strong cutoff here in this corner for both players, really. But then also for this bottom player, you've got this cutoff here, and it'd be pretty impractical, I think, to hold like these middle points to connect this one. And if you're this player, just cutting off this one, like it's a soft cutoff, but realistically speaking, you're not gonna just cut off this point while keeping the enemy, having them keep like these connecting points, at least these 2 munitions and strategic point. Like you're gonna be coming through this way, so it doesn't really, even though it's a soft cutoff, like the way things are gonna play, it's not really gonna be an issue. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting gameplay mechanic because you have all of this fuel down here, and this is also pretty far from each player's base. Um, yeah, and like I said before, the art still isn't done, but we got some background vistas in here, which is great. Um, but yeah, I think playing the middle is going to be really important here because it'll let you move around, kind of intercept enemy retreat points. I think that there might be a bit of a bias towards the red player in that you just have to kind of come through here. I mean, it really just, we have to play test this a bit and see how the timings work out. But the like the red player coming down here or the blue player coming down here, it's going to be a bit harder. Um, I think for the blue player, cause I feel like it's more of a distance, but we're not really, I think when we're balancing for that, we're not really looking at these corner points. We're looking more at kind of this middle area. Um, One other thing though is that these MG bunkers have got to cover all the area because you can easily, if you're the blue player, pop a squad in here, come in and flank and attack the enemy base. And I think in principle that's not bad, but that's just not how Company of Heroes is balanced around a design. So you don't have like a flamer squad rushing, flanking your base MG bunker and coming in and, killing a bunch of one model squads, in the first 5 minutes of the game, right? We don't really want that. So you're definitely going to want to have every entrance locked down with an MG. I'm not really sure what to do here. Maybe put a high wall. Well, this looks like... Okay, I didn't even notice this. Okay, so as you guys can see, I did a little reload and switch sides here. About the blockers, one thing I thought of is that you see this house is garrisonable, this house is not. This is the blocker asset. I think I might have showed you this on stream or on the recording. But yeah, instead of having this gap here, I would just integrate one or even both of these blocking buildings into the wall here. Just, rotate them 90 degrees and have them be, you can even connect them as well and have them be blockers for this side, just so you can't put like a tank here and fire into the base, or even get like a bazooka squad, come in the flank and destroy the NG and then just walk in. So I think I said it before, but yeah, this is an issue here where you can just walk in the base. But then over here, as we saw, this bush and maybe the tree, but this bush at least are destructible, at least a heavy crush. And there should be some kind of indestructible boundary to your base. I don't know if that's a hard rule, but I'm trying to think of any map that from Relic that has like destructible base boundaries, and I can't think of one. There's always at least something there blocking your base the whole game. So I think actually what you should do is take the same idea from over here and just put a blocking building kind of in this corner, and you can even just move this island and watery bit out a bit, or just take out the island itself altogether and just move the coast back a little bit. Still keep the curve here because we want the base next to the water, but I just noticed the water's frozen. But yeah, we can put a blocking structure right here, and that'll give this base kind of a more solid edge. And especially if you keep the MG bunker here, even if there's a little 2-3 meter width gap that infantry can run through, you still got the MG here protecting you. I'd say overall the map is ready for playtesting. There are a few things that I can see right off the bat that are going to be issues. Again, this house here with these walls that you should definitely have the sight and shot blocking walls over here protecting this cutoff from this really strong building. It is far away, and there is actually a little safe space over here, but the MG it really just stops you from moving past this point. So I feel like this is too strong, especially for this player. And we have the same thing down here, where this is almost worse because we have these upper windows, and so even if I'm not sure what the delta is between the window height and this, but you might get a height bonus, but you're also just dominating this point. So you're also not only the point itself, but the approach to the point, And again, this is super important cutoff. And if we compare the cutoffs, I mean, this point here has this tower, and this looks like it's too far. The MG might touch this barely, but then also this is just so far to the north, you just ignore it. If the red player owns this and you're trying to capture this, you don't even really need this point. If you're moving to kind of the south, you just ignore it. And same thing down here. This point itself is so hard for the enemy player to get to, and there's no building. Again, there's this tower here, but this is just so far away, and it's on the edge of the map. It's not going to do anything. So yeah, that's just kind of, you got a bit of a lot of bonuses for this player. I'm seeing even without playtesting, even against the AI, like there's just, it's a little biased already. One last thing though too. So right now, this is the player 2 slot, and this is the player 1 slot. So you really want to reverse these, even though, I'm blue because I have the unique player colors on, or you're always blue, like in 1v1. When you're watching this as an observer in like a tournament or competitive game, you're going to have your player 1 on your left side, player 2 on your right side. So you want the player 1 side to be on your left, and you want the player 2 side to be on your right. I don't think that should really impact balance that much. Even though the factions are asymmetrical, you're not really designing, oh, this is the Axis part of the map, this is the Ally part of the map. Yeah, I'd say just swap those out, just so we get the clearer picture with the observer mode and replays. That we're not saying, oh, the left side is red, but then on our UI, the left side is actually blue because it's the player 1. We just don't want that confusion. So just change that up in the editor real quick, make this player 1, make this player 2, and we should be good to go. With that being said, folks, I think this map is definitely ready for some playtesting, especially to see how these unique elements work out. As you can see, we've got most of the green cover pushed off of the capture points, like we no longer have the big logs here. We've got some green cover outside the point, but that's perfectly fine. That's really what you want, right? Because in Code 1, you got an actual penalty for capturing the point, but because you just have to stand in the zone, we're trying to recreate that choice between capturing and being effective in combat with putting the cover outside of the capture zones of the points. So, yeah, we've still got a ways to go in the art department. We're going to get some more tiles, objects, etc. over here, kind of in the periphery, and some more variation in the textures overall. But I think it's definitely come a long way in the, 5 or 6 days that I've looked at this and got it. But yeah, this is going to be on the Steam Workshop for you to play, and this most updated version that you see now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to feedback. Remember, the best place for feedback for individual maps is in their map channels in the World Builders Discord. Yeah, like you can write on Steam, you can comment on this YouTube video, but the best place for feedback for the mapper is going to be in the World Builders Discord. Okay, guys, thanks so much for listening. Let's move on to the next map today. All right, folks, this is Nettuno. Let's take a real quick look at the tactical map here. So we have got 6 strategic points. Let's count up the oil, the fuel. So we've got 5, 10, 15, 25, 30, 40, 45 fuel. And we've got 5, 15, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 75, 80, 95 munitions. Ooh. Wish I had a fancy pen or something. Okay. 10 munitions, 15, 25, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 45, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 85, 90. Okay, 90 munitions. Maybe I'm still wrong, but I counted twice and I got the same number both times, so we'll call it a day. So let's take a look here. So we've got beautiful little D-Day scene here. It's a bit of the wrong side, but maybe, yeah. I think again, like we saw in Ansaldo Genova, we've got the sides reversed where Team 1, I mean, well, Team 1 is in the right order in terms of UI, where we've got the allied players up here, we've got the blue on the left and red on the right. But in terms of the maps thematically, it's backwards. Not a huge deal, not a deal breaker, especially, I mean, this is the periphery of the map. We can ignore this, especially because when we're looking, the map, I suppose, slopes upwards gradually. So, I think it's fine. Not a huge deal. We've got some very dense urban combat. I like the incorporation of the Roman ruins. It looks a little funky. I feel like you'd want these walls duplicated down here as well. I'm not sure. And it looks a little weird having the Roman ruins with these walls meshed together. I don't know, just a visual thing, right? I think pathfinding here, it's an interesting little flanking route. I think in terms of gameplay, it's very well detailed in terms of the urban buildings and whatnot, but I feel like we're gonna want to. I feel like this is just way too narrow of streets. I mean, it's definitely realistic. You think of old Italian cities built up literally over centuries, if not millennia, and you're gonna get kind of weird streets like this. But I feel like in gameplay, we definitely want to build things out a little bit. And then we think of the height mechanics as well, where you might have a unit down here getting totally destroyed by a unit up here in this building. I'd like to see less buildings and more open spaces in this little sector here. And you can even play with the camera match to make it a bit higher, because I feel like this is just so difficult to play with those dense streets. But overall, it looks really nice. I mean, I can tell a lot of detail and effort went into it. That being said, we still need a bit more detail. So we have this very monotonous tile here, which is great. But if we can incorporate, bits of more tile, I see some lines here. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just part of the tile. This is a little weird design, although I guess not out of the ordinary. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little too lost in the weeds here with all these little details here, because there can be a lot to look at. So, I guess overall with the layout, I see that we have some cutoffs. But the thing is, with the cutoffs, we definitely want them to align more with, in general, the territory sector should align a bit more with the terrain somehow. We want things to look like they're integrated with the scene. We want the territory sectors to look as if they're part of the world and not added onto it, kind of tacked on at the end. So if we look at these borders here, it's just very arbitrary, right? You'd want the borders to somehow reflect the streets, and yeah, and part of this too is just gotta clean this up a little bit, where this goes into the capture zone. The capture zone, just I think in principle, should be not, its capture zone should be in its own territory entirely, and especially we can bring this line in, bring it flush with the edge of the street here, rather than edge of the building, rather than kind of just making it stick out a bit. I see what you're trying to do here. I like it with these cutoffs, make things a bit more competitive. But yeah, it's gotta. You want these to kind of fit with the terrain somehow, with the building blocks. So I'd say that's my next. The next thing would be to figure out well, the territory would come after kind of figuring out what you want to do with some of these dense urban areas. But I like that you're trying to make these cutoffs. They look like they sort of connect. The strategic points all sort of connect to one another and kind of work as cutoffs for both sides. I think it's interesting. 1, 2. We have 3 victory points. So yeah, I think I'd say that if you have a side that has 2 victory points, you're definitely 99% of the time you want to put fuel on the other side. So the issue here is that we're going to have all this combat focused up here, because we have 10 fuel here, 10 fuel here. The munitions are kind of secondary, but we've got 10 munitions point here. You're going to see a lot of fighting here and not much down here, just because you have a lot of fuel here and both victory points. So there's very little reason to go in other places unless you're losing. And then at that point, the time it takes to kind of move troops around and the resources the other team is gathering, it just kind of helps snowballing a bit too much. I do like the attention to detail overall, especially in these areas. I like the more open spaces. Yeah, I think I feel like it's just too dense of buildings. I see that it looks relatively realistic. There are some areas here where you can add gardens. You can even add some crop-looking things, because I'm sure back in the day, less so now, but back then you'd have people with their own kind of little gardens and things like that. You can definitely add some. There's like I know there's a few wheat grasses you can add here. That'd be something good to add. But I'd say yeah, the biggest thing right now is I think reconfiguring the layout a bit to both conform with how you want the territory sectors to behave, as well as for gameplay. I think you're going to want to have a bit more variation in size of height of buildings. So yeah, like for example, this here I think would be a great gameplay space. But and I see what you're trying to do here, make a little kind of garden nook. But all this does with the default camera, it just blocks all of this space from being seen, and it blocks this. And that doesn't say that there aren't spaces and times for hiding spots for demo charges and ambushes and things of units behind buildings. But in so much of this map, we're just seeing building facade after building facade after building facade. And I think gameplay-wise, it's not that it isn't fun, it isn't appealing, but we want to make maps that are not that this one isn't competitive, but we want maps that combine kind of a realistic looking scenario with gameplay. So when you have this big obstruction here, that really hinders gameplay, and it also just, imagine on stream, when you're kind of sitting here, like you just get building roof after building roof, and you don't really see the garden, and then by the time you're over here, this is all the way off center of your screen, and you're focused here. Like this is a great example. We got very open spaces. I think these wooden walls look a bit out of place in this dense kind of concrete and stone area, but the terracotta walls are perfectly on point. Yeah, I'd say, like I said before, biggest things are just figuring out the right layout you want. We could even add some more streetcars down here. I'd love to see a couple of streetcars. I don't know if there's a streetcar wreck, but yeah, we can tidy this up a bit as well. That must be that texture. And these are North Africa buildings. These especially look out of place. These ones, not as much, but I see this supposed to be a bit more industrial. But I don't know. I feel like this could be, instead of a... Oh, that's nice, the boat on the truck. But yeah, instead of having this be a kind of working space, this should be more of a pedestrian zone. I don't know if... I think you could even put like some of the market stalls and assets and tables here. Yeah, I think... Ooh, and this presents its own challenge with the old walls. I like the idea of the walled city. I can see this is based on the actual real location. But I think in terms of gameplay, this is just going to be too chaotic, too difficult to see. And I think especially some things like this, just... We're not really made to see this part of the texture, I don't think. I don't know, it just looks out of place, it doesn't look so good. If this was lower, maybe it would be better, and you could kind of cover it with flowers or something. But yeah, this I think has got to be a bit more open. And, yeah, I just feel like there's too many buildings here. That's the biggest issue. Too many buildings, too dense, they're too tall. And it's got to be spread out a bit more. Even if it's like... Even if you could say, oh, there was an Allied bombing run, and I'm just going to take out this kind of whole middle section of buildings and just kind of leave it as if... Like, you almost leave the exterior, but you say, oh, the middle got bombed out. I would do that, and then add the destruction yourself, kind of... Yeah, add it yourself, make it open, because... unless what you could do is use those pre-rolled destruction prefabs and just hit every house with, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those, like, whatever biggest piece of ordnance you can find. That might work, although it is random every game, right? Because it actually fires those shells once you boot up the map. But, yeah, I would just open this all up, because, like this is probably the kind of smallest space I'd want to go with. And I like that you're cognizant of the capture zones, where you've got this rectangle not here, or you have the rectangle itself and not the circle, and you also have it pointed into the street. That's really smart. Yeah, I would say just... Yeah, you're definitely going to open this up somehow. I think having such restricted access is a bit of a detriment. And then also... Can units even path? I guess they can path under, but they can't go over. Let's check it out.
We're moving out, fellas.
Yeah.
Scouts, lead the way.
Okay.
Clearing a path. We'll find a way. Let's head out, boys. Stay together. We're getting extra recon kit. Standing by. Get ready to
Yeah,
jump
and there's
off.
just a few things I want to touch up too, right? Like, I like that you have kind of the buildings integrated into the old ruins, but you've got like a little balcony here sticking through.
Smokes and flares. Get them ready.
Yeah, I feel like you could fill this with something so you don't see the wall in the greenery, but the Italian ruscus.
Let's get this over
But
with. We're all here. We got somewhere to be. Stop there for a
but
second.
yeah, it's a bit odd. You'd expect to be able to walk here, but the engine just doesn't allow for that, which is fine. It's not your
We
fault.
can't stay here, boys.
Um,
Come on.
But yeah, I think it's a bit too restrictive getting into this area. But then on the other hand, I see why you put the 2 victory points at the top. But I think again, it's just it's too crowded inside. The entrances are too odd, too difficult. Like, if you're the Axis player, you've got to go around quite a ways, right? You have to come all the way over here through these stairs, or you go up these stairs and you come over here. And if you're the Allied player, the Allied side,
We've got orders.
you've got a pretty wide range of available entrances. So you've got this one down here, which is just stairs, but you've also got this big ramp up here. So the Axis are really going to be unable to bring in vehicles, whereas the Allied players are going to be able to bring in vehicles. Now, it's not that they're going to have an easy time maneuvering in here or getting out, but if you get like a flamethrower tank or an anti-infantry tank or something, even like not the Crusader, but the one that has the big gun, the Cromwell with the big like 95mm howitzer, you're going to have a bit of an easier time clearing this out than if you were the German side and you have to bring your tanks all the way around.
Let's get to it, fellas.
All the way around to, I guess, the same entrance the Allies are using. So that's just something I'd consider. You could even, honestly, I would say, like, bomb out this corner, make this a big ramp that vehicles can drive into, bomb out the middle, just add a lot of destruction here, make it, and it could even be like, oh, the bombardment was like a year ago, so even though there's some craters and things, it's not like it's filled with rubble, but it's relatively cleared, but it's not like there's a lot of money and people available to like rebuild a bombed out city because all of Italy's getting invaded, right? So I would just I would just go with that, make these spaces bigger. It's just so much roof, really obstructs your vision. It makes the gameplay less fun. It's a really cool kind of, almost immersive first-person player experience. But until we can make that first-person shooter mod in CoH 3, this isn't really what we're going for, right? Anyway, yeah, I like the map. I like the attention to detail. I'd say this is ready for playtesting. I mean, it really is, but I think there are just some big issues that you've got to work out before the map is really like suitable for, this is something I could see with just a few tweaks here or there. This could be, in the auto match map pool. And I really like the stream here. I like all the vineyards. It is a bit monotonous, so you can definitely break this up. I know we have this wrecked Sherman here, but we don't have, for example, we don't have any tracks. We don't have any accompanying debris, either splats or actual entities around here as debris. We don't have other shell holes. It's like you just plop the Sherman down here, maybe with this splat, maybe the splat comes with it, and you called it a day.
That's us, boys.
But you'd expect to see some track marks, some, divots where other shells hit that miss the tank, things like that. Yeah, and then same thing here. It's a little too monotonous. So with that tank, being destroyed, you can definitely add in like, oh, maybe there was a plane crash and it wiped out a lot of these vineyards, and you have some destruction and burning and fuel remnants and whatever. Or maybe you have, you include more of the Sherman wrecks over here, and the Shermans kind of drove through the fields. Or maybe you can even just use the pre-roll destruction and drop some explosives. And I wouldn't do that for the whole area, but maybe for one of these quadrants or part of the larger sections, just to give it a bit more variation. Like here, you've got some cool grass to vary things up, which is nice. But and I can see that throughout. But yeah, it's just a little too monotonous with all of the vineyards here. I definitely break it up somehow. But the stream looks really great. I love all the different rocks here. The rocks might be a little too bright, and I think you might want to you might have to retile this texture, or maybe you make it a decal. I'm not exactly sure. It looks a little wonky, but I do like kind of the bright rocks and the lush grass. It looks nice. It just needs a little fine tuning here, and I like how it kind of, yeah, it just looks pretty good for the most part. Yeah, honestly, you've got some of these trucks here. Yeah, this is good. You can't actually capture these. It's nice to include them in the outside of your map, like you got here. But it, like a little tidbit to relic. If we can get some of these trucks and things that can be in the map but not capturable and not salvageable, that'd be great. Because I'd love to have extra flavor and things like that here. Yeah. Okay. And I guess, yeah, obviously this is kind of incomplete. It's the out of bounds area, but in terms of different zones and in different environments, I see that we get the ruins, kind of the ancient ruins, kind of built up down here. Much of the map is this kind of same city area. We've got we've got the vineyards over here, like we've got this garden up here, but we've also got some gardens up here, and then we have some industrial bits here. I don't think that's unrealistic. It's almost like it's a bit more than a gas station, some kind of like warehouse service station thing. But I can see, but it's so like you don't have any kind of you don't have this connected to the little example we had down here on the victory point. It's just, and of course cities aren't all like, oh, we're gonna have one aesthetic theme in this part of the city and a totally different one in this other part of the city. But when you're considering kind of the different environments, it is a bit jarring almost. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, I'd say just kind of think of the different themes you want. I like this big open estate thing. I just, yeah, vary things up a bit. You can have kind of big landmarks like this. That's really great. It also provides us lots of open space to work with. But again, I am just still really concerned with kind of the density in some parts of the map, especially that bottom left portion, but also kind of in this middle portion where a lot of action's going on. And then in terms of gameplay, that also spills over into the top over here with these resources. And I know I'm reiterating the same points, so I'll probably stop it here. But yeah, we just, in some areas we need more detail, like here. And then in terms of gameplay, we've got to open this up, and I'd say, yeah, maybe knock down this corner. Pretend there was an Allied bombing raid 6, 8, 12 months ago, and you've cleaned it up, but not really been able to build anything new, so it opens that up down there. I'd say either get rid of this kind of industrial portion, or make this kind of industrial look extend up to here, and maybe you have a bit of a service type corridor. I'm not sure, but again, kind of these North Africa buildings don't really look the part. They don't really blend well here. And then in some other areas, oh, where was it? It was here, this building. Just move this in line here, and we'll open this space up for maneuvering and also for the visuals. And then the last thing, of course, is make, like I said before, the map territory points should be part of the map and not as if they're kind of plopped into the world and kind of cut and paste to look to be like gameplay elements. You really should try your best to make the gameplay part of the territory map flow with the actual physical layout of the map itself. Yeah, and then just another thing, like I said before, vary this up, add a plane crash, you know, more Sherman wrecks or something, a bit more destruction here and there. But overall, I can see you put a lot of time into this, a lot of effort, and yeah, still need a bit more touching up in some places, but we gotta redesign things a little bit. And again, we see these desert arches here. Find a different arch. I know you used like that gray arch with the metal spikes on top. Maybe use that one throughout. Maybe use a different arch, but I'd say keep the Africa arches and walls. Maybe even I'd say, yeah, just stick with the terracotta arches. Yeah, just keep the. I feel like it looks a little out of place here. I don't know. You could have a desert theme in Italy. I kind of get that with the palms, although I know Italy just has its, you know, it has palm trees, right? It's warm. So I don't know, but that was one point I had. Oh yeah, this arch here. This is one point I thought of when making the the requirements of the map and whatever. Like, make sure you're keeping the North Africa assets in Africa and the Italy assets in Italy. Although there is some leniency, I think if you can kind of do it convincingly, it'll work. But we might need the might want to stick with the terracotta walls, like these. Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me here. I know I've kind of reiterated points. This is my first time looking at the map. I didn't have anything prepared. I'm just going off what my brain is telling me. But yeah, play this at like 1.25 times speed or 1.5 times speed to get through it in a bit of a faster manner. Yeah, so this is going to take a bit more work. It's going to be on the workshop. You'll have a link in the description. But again, I think it still needs a bit more work. Not necessarily an overhaul, I'd say, but a new version where we're getting new. We're opening up new paths. We're making certain areas bigger. Like, you kind of got the same idea here. You know, we've got a kind of an open square surrounded by buildings. That's okay, but maybe we want to tone the buildings down. If you want to have a bit more 1- or 2-story buildings here instead of these 3-story buildings in a line. That's with the default camera. You know, this is right in our face. So maybe even up the camera mesh a little bit. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Again, if you have feedback for this map, please leave it in the World Builders Discord in the specific channel for the map. That's the best way to get feedback for the mapper. If you want to stay up to date on the competition, subscribe here on my YouTube channel. Give this video a like. You know, leave a comment and support. But for the most up-to-date news about the competition and when new maps are coming or maps are updated, join the World Builders Discord and you'll find everything you need there. Not only for the competition, but if you want to get making a map yourself. So, with that being said, thank you everyone. Have a good one and take care. I think there's actually another map coming up, so we'll take a quick look at that one and I'll have you on your way. Thanks. Bye. Alright folks, next up is the 4-player map Rapido River Valley.
Roger that. We won't reinforce without your word.
So this is definitely going to need a bit more work. Just territory layout looks a little bit, it's painted somewhat, but it looks kind of still auto-generated. Another big thing is you got these bridges here. That's obviously a big issue for a competitive map. Let's take a look real quick. So in terms of resources, we've got 10, 15, 20 fuel, and we've got 10, 15, 20 fuel, so 40 fuel. And how many munitions? We've got 5, 10, 20, 25, 30, 40, so 80. So 80 munitions exactly, 40 fuel exactly, so resources are balanced. We're definitely going to not want... Well, that game is optimized. I think having this giant field of grass is not the best way to have a base sector. It's just a little too monotonous. The wind is a little strong too, but I mean, you got the right idea with the field sectioned off, and so the wind is a little strong. We can see this blowing really fast. But yeah, I definitely just, especially in the map, in the playable area itself, not have the grass be so overpowering. A little bit here and there is good. Over here, sure, maybe, but you want to break up you know, even with the default camera when we're on the edge, we can look here. You really want to break this up and have less grass. Plus, it is a little taxing on your computers, you know, rendering all this stuff and all the calculations for the wind and whatnot. Yeah, just I'm going to go into a bit more of this when I look into the editor, but the biggest issue really is just the fact that we have this big central river that really makes it a cooperative or even casual map versus a competitive map. And then we have this big height difference up here, and this really just benefits the Axis players because when they're defending their side, they're going to get this big bonus here. Now, depending on how things are, how you decide to change the middle, that might not be an issue because you could have VPs kind of here along the river, or you know, maybe one kind of opposite like this. But yeah, it's just going to need a significant overhaul. And I do mention this a little bit later, but you're going to have the map is all kind of one thing. You don't have kind of distinct different areas. Then another smaller thing is that we've got these kind of desert arches here and here. I don't think they really match with the Italian, the Italian theme, but that might be a minor issue. I do think that the map's atmosphere has a bit of like almost Halloween spooky vibes. So if we, for example, turn on the Fog of War, it's a very, for whatever reason, between the lighting or the textures or whatever, it just feels very spooky. And spooky is all right. We've got some night maps, like Monte Cavo and Benghazi in the map pool, but I'm not sure. It might end up being a little too dark. It's just a little too bland. Everything is very dark, which is fine, but especially with this monotony, even little bits of color popping here or there could go a long way. Like this market, I like the flowers here, the fruits and vegetables. That's nice. But yeah, the roads, you can definitely tell where each spline ends, and it's all kind of the same spline as well. So we're just going to need to do a bit more texture work there and get things a bit more natural looking and less repetitive. Yeah, and the bridge, I don't know, the best way to approach this might be you have some kind of dam here, or you just have a dry kind of riverbed, but also you're going to want to take out some of these hedges, because even if you take out the riverbed, you're still going to have these narrow crossings, or if you take out the river, I mean, you're still going to have these narrow choke points that are easy to cut off, and that's fun in a definitely casual or like a like PvE setting against AI, but it's not for competitive map, it's not really conducive to that kind of thing. But I do like, there is a lot of detail here I can see, especially in entities. Like we've got all these hedges here, and there's little things here and there. But in terms of the textures, we're going to need a bit more texture work. Yeah. So before we really can talk about balance and things like that, we're going to need to look at the big picture in terms of map flow with this river here, and then gameplay balance would be figuring out, do I need to reduce the height of this hill, because it looks really cool. I really like the look of it. Kind of imposing village on the hillside. But in terms of balance, with the VP being here, it's going to be a big, these players are going to have a huge advantage defending this position. And whereas the attacking players are always going to be disadvantaged or at best neutral if they manage to get a squad up here. So those are just some things to consider. Yeah, it just needs to be not overhauled entirely, because there's a good kind of nugget here in this village, but we're going to need to stray from the inspiration or reality of this little area a bit just to make a balanced and competitive minded map. Yeah, and then the art can come as we go along, but like just having so much monotonous pieces on either side, it's you want kind of different sections, different environments, different parts of your map. Yeah, so yeah, so I look at things in detail a bit more in the editor, but just want to give a quick little preview of things in game. I like the destruction; it's cool, but sometimes the wind, especially on this side, like we're just looking at it, the wind is a bit much, or there's some factor in the action marker that makes these effects go on for too long, like literally long, especially the papers here, and these are just coming out of the ground. Yeah, so just a few big things, a few little things to consider. But my original recording of this actually got corrupted, so I go into things a bit in the editor here, so sorry if it's a bit repetitive, but I just wanted to make another clip here where it's kind of short and sweet, just showing off the map in its in game, because you get a bit more, get a different perspective in a sense looking at it this way. So anyway, guys, let's jump into the editor. Hey folks, so I'm just taking a look at Rapido River in the editor here, and I just wanted to check out the height deltas here. Okay, so we take a look at the ruler here. Okay, yes, we're definitely not getting any height bonus on this side. Even if we're at the top here, yeah, we're only 2.5 meters over here. Obviously we're meeting that. We get like a 10 meter difference in such a Yeah. So that's the biggest balance issue with this map, I'd say right now, is the height advantage on one side, and then the biggest gameplay issue is going to be just the big river in the middle. Um, yeah, we're just going to have to overhaul it quite a bit. I like I like the idea of having two settlements on either side, but you know, one thing that I remember from Relic's map making 101 series, that they spoke about different kind of environments, and we kind of just have one environment here. Like we can't even play with the central river, right? That's just sort of there. But then we just have both sides have the same kind of grass. They have a lot of the same structures, like we see here, these kind of church and the church tower duplicated here with this extra one. We don't have variety in kind of the different landscapes, which is okay. I mean, we have a bit more of a built up area here, but you want to have, even if you went with like a map that has one feature, you might want to vary up different areas of that feature with different things. Like you might choose buildings of a different color. You might choose a different kind of cobblestone texture. You might choose a different color of road texture. You might have different kinds of plants. But it's just, this one is just so monotonous. There's got to be a little bit more variety here in the map in terms of, from an aesthetic point. Like I said, resources were fine. We just got to paint the areas a bit to make them a bit more competitive, but also flow with the map. Flow with like the actual, like I said, with the 4 versus 4 map, you want to have the territory flow with the roads and paths and things like that. So yeah, like I said, overall I like the feel of the map. It's not as vibrant and bright. It's a bit, Halloween vibes almost. So it is a bit dull in that sense, but I don't think it's bad. Although I am a bit concerned that doesn't really fit with either kind of theme that we have going on with the Co 3 maps. But then I think, well, you have some new night maps like Monte Cabo, for example. So I don't think it's terrible, but it might, maybe it could be a little brighter. I'm not sure. And then another little thing here, we've got like a desert arch. I don't know if that's, like, I like the little market here, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think the desert arch really fits with this kind of wall, but I could be mistaken. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. And then another thing I noticed here with this, sorry, this is for the map makers really, with this wall component spline. I mentioned this in the earlier videos, but you can see how each individual wall section really struggles to, it's like curving too much. And that's just the way the splines are. So especially with such a like 180 degree, like a half circle shape here, you might want to break this spline up into 2 or even 3 different splines. And maybe you even have maybe this central entity, this central fence post here, or the central fence is just a single entity that's straight. But yeah, like I like, there's a lot of detail in some parts, like the cars are cool, and there's some a lot of work here, and you have the different textures kind of painted, but even here they don't blend well together, and like I already said before, the roads they're all kind of the same, right? So we just got to work on art wise getting a bit more variety and things in there, and we've got the same grass texture used throughout the entire map. But yeah, again, this is just my first time looking at this map. I don't have anything prepared or anything like that, so forgive me for rambling a bit. Just to recap, biggest points are height, elevation, bias, the river in the middle, which really makes this go from any chance of a competitive map to, at best, that are just, they're won because one guy's internet cut out for like half a minute, and then they're able, the other team is able to beat them with the AI replacing the player. But we're not really doing that with this competition here. So yeah, I'd say definitely bit of an, again, not necessarily an overhaul is required, but definitely a lot of big changes are going to be necessary. But yeah, see, we got lots. I love the little piano here. That's great. But yeah, we just like a bit more texture work here is needed. Anyway, yeah, I like the look of the map. I like the feel of the map. But again, we just got some gameplay considerations that we're gonna need to consider to kind of radically change how things go. Maybe even though it's supposed to be big river, maybe we just have a little stream in the center instead. And then of course we really got to figure out reduce this height delta quite a bit, or bring this height up so it's kind of balanced, and that it's really hard to push beyond the middle. But either side has a kind of a home half advantage where they have a height advantage shooting down into the middle and all that. Anyway, thanks for checking this out with me. I really appreciate it. Again, this map is going to be... I don't think it's going to be in the workshop quite yet. But join the Co-World Builders Discord to get updates on this map. And when it does... when I do get everything I need and it is live. And as well as for other maps, like I said before, you join the World Builders Discord and you're going to get the latest news, latest map updates, and everything like that right there. And you're also able to chat with other players, chat with some of the judges, organize games, especially with the larger team games. It's going to be hard to, get seven of your buddies together to play test a map. So that'll be a great place to organize games and get some tests done and provide some great written feedback. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care. Have a good one. And I'll see you later.